Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale, maybe just straight up finale for Promised Land. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So in the aftermath of everything, Joe's family's pretty much falling apart. His children have gathered to take him down. Letty's left him. In fact, we see her kicking it with Billy. Well, not just kicking it with Billy. That sounds too platonic. Like, it's just, she was able to get away and enjoy time with Billy, and she's kind of made her decision, even saying, like, she wants to go home, not just back to Sonoma, to Mexico. She hasn't been back there in so long. You know, the people, the language, it's like, you know, because I'm sure being in America, like, she probably, like, just to, like, you to assimilate more, you probably doesn't speak Spanish a lot unless it's around her family, just because, you know, so it's like you're not as in and deep as the culture as you normally would be. Like in Mexico, you probably had, like, a lot of it's just probably like Americanized a little bit. You kind of have to, just to kind of fit under the circumstances, so you kind of lose a little bit of that, I think, being here. So probably want to go back, feel like you're more in touch with your roots, surrounded by your people, surrounded by the language all the time, I think. But then news breaks about Joe's situation, and then we cut to everybody's circumstances of everyone finding out. Well, we find out over the course of the episode, a lot of people already knew earlier, but it's just like the entire family having the news, like, broken to them like that. So, which is so interesting, and I think it's a little inconsistent with certain things later on in the episode. But I guess it's like, no, truth be told is, I guess it's just the family. No, now that I'm thinking about it, it's not. It's just like, right, the news and how much of an impact it had on the business is kind of what hit everyone. Because it's like, all right, it's news now. Because before it's like, right, this ended up just being news with, like, the board and the shareholders and stuff like that. But we'll get to that. So Joe is on his own, and he confronts his children. It's like, oh, you guys are trying to rally against me? And he even calls out Veronica, being like, the fact of the matter is, before you came to challenge me, you should have made sure that all your ducks are in a row, because you got Antonio supporting you, Carmen's reluctant, Mateo's reluctant, Junior doesn't really have much say in it because his trust already all his shares are in a trust that Joe has control over until he's 18, so there's not much he can do on that front. But Mateo and Carmen are holding off, and it's like, right, you thought you had people that were rock solid behind you, because for Veronica, it's like, Dad, I love him and everything, but he's lost his way. Heritage House has lost its way, so we need to be the ones that kind of bring it back to where it was before. But he's like, right, you're coming for my throne. That was a mistake, especially because he's not in a good mood right now with everything with Letty. She does come back, but she's simply coming back just to get her stuff. And he's just kind of like, she's like, I could stay at the guest room, or I could stay at the hotel. Stay at a hotel while I'm gathering my stuff. And he's like, do what you need to, Letty. This is your house. I won't stop you. So he's just going through so much pain. And especially when you cut back and forth between the things between him and Letty are complicated, because he makes it clear, he declares that he does love her. So it isn't a situation of she went the entire time never knowing. Like, she knew on some level, it's just neither one of them had confessed their feelings to each other. It's like, we kissed, but she's like, yeah, but I'm with Billy. But Joe's feeling himself a little bit because he doesn't want the attention that he's getting newspaper wise for the strike and stuff. But it is still a situation that, because he doesn't want the look too deeply into Joe Sandoval, it could jeopardize him and Letty, so he doesn't want to do that. But he is feeling good after their kiss last time. It's like, yeah, there can be an us. You can tell he was acting a little distant towards Margaret despite everything. And especially Joe really started feeling himself the moment he tasted the wine that Gonzo brought over that he took from them. And he spit it out. He's like, yeah, the strike's going to be over soon. And they confront old man Honeycroft. And he calls him out. He's like, right, you've basically been mixing other stuff to make this, because you had like some kind of virus attack his crops, so to compensate for it, like, he had basically, his wine wasn't the way he presented it on the label. It has to be like 75% like, well, grape or something like that. But he's like, but Joe has quite the palate, and it's like, yo, look at you dismantling Honeycroft like that. And yet he already disliked you because you led the charge on this strike, and now you're up here like threatening his wine and his very business, because it's like, oh yeah, there's this reporter who's taking an interest in our story, and I'm curious how they'd feel about knowing about your so-called cap, like this wine that you're trying to sell, like is it really what you claim it to be with the label? So, and even you could tell Margaret was almost like, whoa, like I don't think she's ever really seen someone, especially Joe's age, essentially have her dad by the balls the way Joe did. I was like, yo, look at him, he's so smart. Like I said, Joe's feeling himself, and because he was feeling himself, like he really got caught up in the moment. He feels like everything's working out. It's like, right, I'm in the process of getting the girl that I love, Letty, plus things are working out, the strike's over, we're going to get what we need and want. But then Billy started noticing, so Billy got scared, so he proposes to Letty, because he saw the way they were looking at each other. It's like, no, I need to jump on this immediately. And he proposes to Letty, but she turns him down. And then that leads to a whole thing back and forth between Joe and Billy. And I love Joe saying like, right, the old man, you really think you can lay me down? Ask the old man, you can beat me up, but I ain't staying down. So, but we find out, Letty found out she was pregnant. She was 11 to 12 weeks pregnant. Something of that nature. And so now it's a situation of like, it is Billy's baby, and you know Margaret's there with her as her friend, being like, "What are you going to do?" And you can also tell it's a little bit of a conflict of interest, because it's like, right, you wanted to make sure it wasn't Joe's baby, because that leaves more of a window for you and Joe, because she knows how Letty feels about Joe, she knows how Joe feels about Letty, and even Letty's like, it sucks, you know. She thought the whole being in love with two brothers thing would just be something you see in the story, but Billy, there's a certain light in him that she can't help but be attracted to, but then like the way she feels when she's around Joe, that spark that they have. But at the end of the day, she's like, I couldn't choose, but God chose for me. And so Margaret being like happy for her, it's like, well, Margaret's happy for you because, hey, you made your choice. What are you going to do? You made that decision, which I think what are you going to do is like this, like the signature line of this episode, because there's a conversation all around about, well, what is everyone going to do in the fallout and the aftermath of just the events of this episode. But part of me also thinks Margaret was happy because it's like, right, I can potentially Joe to myself type of thing, you know? It's like, right, you're in love with this person and you don't, it kind of limits, you know, it's like, it's that complicated thing. And when you're in love, you're like, oh man, it sucks because you are my friend, but this is also the person I love, and I don't want you two to be together. I want me and this person to get together. I get that. Like, you know, it sucks and that complicated love square that they were in. But at the same time, present day, Margaret tells Letty, like, yeah, I know the truth about it. It's like, yeah, I know about Carlos, and Antonio uncovered that one stone, and I uncovered a whole bunch on my own, so I need you to know I know about you, Juana, but I'm not trying to expose you or anything. And Letty's like, all right, I will give you my 5% share, but please, despite my issues with Joe, I don't want you to do this, because if you take the company from him in this way, it will destroy him, you know? But for Margaret, it's like this, he needs to be taught a lesson. He will never learn otherwise. It's like this, because for her, it's like, this has been my motivation since we split and he took the vineyard from me. It's all I have. It's the thing that kept me going. It's what drove me all these years. So you're telling me to basically let go of what's been my motivation, my driving force this entire time. I can't. Joe has to pay. So she is going to go through with it. Because even Letty, when she saw the report on TV, she was like, oh, I guess like Margaret pulled the trigger. But then at the same time, Antonio ended up telling Veronica the truth. And Veronica was like, wow, to think like our dad went through that like so much to build this on his own. So it made her even admire her father even more, because she knew he struggled, but she didn't know like how much he struggled, where he started at. Like you could make the argument he started at the bottom, but even a little bit lower than that. He was kind of in the negatives because of his status of coming to this country, you know, sadly illegally, which even Veronica's like, I don't like that term. And I could, because that term has such a heavy, like, negative weight, like, oh, you're illegal. Like, I could see how that stamp, because because that stamp puts a stigma on you, like you aren't, in a way, I could see that kind of dehumanizing someone by being like, oh, you're illegal, like, you don't belong, you know? I could see that, you know, sticking and that terminology stinging, why Veronica was like, I don't like that. I don't like that stamp on like someone, making it seem like, oh, someone doesn't belong. Like, so, but Antonio was like, right, I told this information to Margaret, so we have to use it, which she's reluctant to do that to their dad, because it's like, right, he built this business, and now knowing like what he went through to build it. That's also Mateo's thing. Like, Mateo didn't want, he's like, despite what Joe's done in talking to his mom, he was like, yeah, but Joe did what he had to do to build that business, and we might have our differences, but I respect what the man's done. So for him, he doesn't really want to go against Joe despite their issues. And Veronica was reluctant to pull the trigger on this, just like their mom was reluctant to pull the trigger on it. But for Antonio, he's like, if you don't do it, mom will, and once she pulls that trigger, she'll take advantage of it. So if we do that, we prevent her from taking the company, and it becomes ours. So at the same time, Carmen's dealing with her own situation. She wants to go out, like, she's trying to figure out what role she should play in the family, where she's going to go with, and Nazi convinces her, like, right, there's a beverage, like, Oasis Beverages, they want to buy your sangria, and it's like, right, we got to go to this meeting now, and they said all the sweet, beautiful things that they needed to say, like, oh, you're going to make this much money, we're going to have you on a board, you're going to basically get these options where, like, you're going to make, like, 60 mil on top of it. It's like, they're saying all the right things, but it's like, yeah, I need you to sign right now. I'm like, that's never a good deal. I think that's where you get into that sketchy territory immediately when they're like, the fact is I thought Nadi, because Nadi was looking like, wait, why do they want you to sign immediately? But she's the one that convinced Carmen to pull the trigger on it, which sucks because for Carmen, it's like, no, maybe I should get lawyers to look over this. And it's like, oh, whose lawyer? Your dad's lawyer? It's like, no, you wanted this to be your own, so go ahead. This is a great opportunity. It won't be on the table long. And she's like, okay, but it's like, no, don't do that, Carmen. You were right to trust your instincts. You call a lawyer so that you can look through all the papers. They set this up with you because they knew that you would jump at the opportunity, throw all this money, more money than you could see on your own, and you'd be like, oh yeah, of course I'm going to jump on it, and not realize that they bought her product and they're going to shelve it because they don't want the competition. And now Carmen's like, especially when everything that went down in the episode after the aftermath of just like Joe's secret coming out, now on top of that, you're telling me, wait, everything that's going on with my family and this business that I've poured everything into, my brothers have given everything to make this happen for me, you know? Mateo and Junior, they helped me out, and you're telling, and I put everything I had into this. This was her, like, you know, she kind of put all her chickens in one basket with this, and it's like, now it's gone. And now she even asked Nazi, it's like, wait, did you know this? And Nazi's like, no, I didn't. But I'm like, she is the one that pulled you to, it's hard to say, because either Nazi was like, no, I was just trying to support you, I did what I thought was best for you because I do care about you. But then there's also a part of you that's like, well, they did come to Nati too, so like maybe she's getting some back end deal off of this. And because even she looked surprised when the deal kind of got immediately thrown in Carmen's face. I guess it's like, the thing is, like, she knew, maybe business wise she knew something was up, but she was like, maybe I'm overthinking it. This is Carmen's opportunity. I want her to flex. I want her to, you know, escape her family's shadow. And in fact, you kind of screwed her over deeply. Hell, to the point she's drinking later on, and Junior like has to like reach out to like kind of snap some sips into her, because it's like, you only have the one good idea. That's all there is to you. So no wonder you're fine. Like, I guess just sit here and waste your time away then. If you're not going to, like, you're just going to accept that you're not going to fight that. But she's like, right, they stole my idea. That sangria was like everything I put into it. And he's like, you know, that's always a complicated thing of like, when you have that really good idea and things kind of blow up in your face, it's like, damn, like, you're afraid like, oh, but what if I can't come up with something else? What if that was my everything? So I can understand that concern of just like, yeah, because it's like, right, you were telling your family not to underestimate you. Don't underestimate yourself. Believe that you still have more to give, that you are someone who created this circumstances, this situation for yourself, thinking outside of the box, seeing things from a different way that no one else in your family was willing to see. Not Mateo, not your dad, and not recognizing what you had that you were sitting on top of. No one else was except for you. So it's just that Carmen, like, having that all stripped away made her just kind of like turn in on herself, and she just didn't believe in herself anymore. So that was just kind of an interesting turn of events. But I'm wondering, looking at that margarita or whatever that her brother brought, that Junior bought her. I think it was like a non-alcoholic one or something like that. And she was looking at the can, and I guess that was kind of, we don't really get a good idea of what it is, but I think that sparked something in her. A lot of sparks were flying for a lot of people. This is like the moment where a lot of people took these opportunities to kind of shine past their current circumstances. Like, Letty's inspired, and she's letting Joe know that she's leaving, going to Mexico, and it's like, oh, you went back to him. Even getting pissed at Billy being like, right, yeah, I took your dream of the house and everything, and now you took Letty from me. He's like, it doesn't work like that. He's like, you know what, bro? Go to hell. He's like, I'll be seeing you there, so... And Letty leaves. It's like Joe's just asking her to please stay. But it's like, yeah, the man she loved is gone. It's like, I didn't do this, Joe. You did. You created the circumstances by being so obsessed with everything. Except obsessed with, like, this power and position. And once again, now your own kids are coming after you. You've lost sight of what was important. And he ends up smashing up the entire room. So I was wondering when it was all said and done, the direction Joe's story was heading at that point in time. I was like, is he... Because I thought, like, his kids were... Like, the way that the beginning was set up, I was thinking, like, the shareholders meeting hadn't started yet, and then Joe dropped that big hammer about him being Carlos. Like, I thought that's where the episode was going, but it's like right there at the shareholders meeting, Margaret's about to make her move, but, you know, the other siblings back out because they don't want to, because Carmen's like, yeah, I'm doing good, but I don't want to, like, give dad the middle finger by on my way out, so I don't want to do anything to hurt him. Same thing for Mateo. So Veronica and Antonio were the only ones left in this, so it's like, right, if we don't pull the trigger on this whole Carlos thing, Mom will. And it's like, right, what did you say before, Antonio, about if Dad had this type of information on a competitor, he would do it without hesitation? And then Antonio says, yeah, and that's why we can't use it, right? And I'm like, thank you. Because I figured that'd be the point they'd have to learn. Like, right, we're not going to run things like Dad did. We are going to be better. Like, we're not going to do things that could be, you know, very heartless and ruthless like him. And so they go to Margaret, and they're like, right, we propose something. I'll work on the wine side of things. Antonio will work on the spirit side of things, and you will have an advisory role. It's like, okay, and what's the second condition? You cannot tell the world about Carlos. It's like, for her, it is a situation of, we will give you the percentages we have, and with our percentage, you have enough to take the company from Dad. And she's like, yeah, but I don't need your 15%. I could just destroy your father by telling people the truth. She's like, yeah, but you'd be ruining your family. Like, the fact is, you're already running your hotels. You'll have so much time spending so much time on this business. You won't be able to be there for your family, which includes your granddaughter. And she's like, oh, look at you. Kind of smoozing me 1 minute and then turning around and immediately blackmailing it afterwards. You are Daddy's little girl, aren't you? And so Margaret ended up agreeing, because she's like, oh, look at me getting to work with my children again, you know, getting to work with my children. I think it also plays into it. Once again, Margaret was already reluctant to pull the trigger on it. She was looking for an excuse. That's why she was like, Joe, let's work together last episode, because she still loves him. But also it's like, yeah, like this way I don't have to use the information I have to destroy, because I can and will destroy you if need be. And she was ready to pull the trigger, but I think she was glad they had the option where she wouldn't have to. Really quickly, we got a little bit with Michael this episode, which I was like, oh, I'm surprised we're seeing you at all. And he's like, yeah, here, you won, V, sole custody. She's like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, so you didn't send all those people to harass me? She's like, I have no idea. He's like, either your dad or your mom did it. Whoever the case may be, you won. It's like, oh, you're kind of walking away. It's kind of dickish that it seems like you're just giving up on your daughter completely. You know, kind of showed your shadier and shittier side, but regardless, we never got resolution for that. I am curious who actually was it. I'd assume it's Margaret, because I don't know if Joe knew everything that was up, but I think it was Margaret probably, like, trying to, like, stick it to him a little hard. I mean, for all we know, it probably could have been Joe. I don't know. But, Joe stood in front of, like, all the shareholders and stuff, and he told his truth. Initially, they were trying to, like, you know, Margaret's like, oh my God, and Antonio's trying to stop him, but Veronica stops Antonio. It's like, no, let him say what he needs to say. And he apologizes to everyone for lying, especially to his family. But at the end of the day, he was like, I will not apologize. This word illegal that you use on me. The fact is that I will not apologize for coming here, like having a dream of wanting something, a better life for my family. I will never regret that. The fact is, I've worked hard. I've paid taxes. You know, it's like I might have came to this country, quote unquote, illegally, but I've put in just as much time, blood, sweat, tears, and money into this company. He's like, I've even helped make a lot of you guys richer too. You should be thanking me for that. But all you'll see is someone who you'll deem as illegal, and you're trying to deport me. He's like, go ahead and do it. I have 2 senators on speed dial. I have all the money. I have the best lawyers. So go ahead and try and deport me. I dare you. I love it. It feels like one of those try me bitch moments. I'm like, it's like a gangster move right there. I love it. And it's like, yeah, try and deport me. The thing is, he's like there, and I love he's like, right, 150 years ago, it was the Irish. Then it was like this group, and then this group, or the Jews. It's like, it's always been, he's like, now it's my group, my people's turn. And he even laughs. He's like, right. He's like, for so long, I kind of pushed away from that. But it's like, yeah, it is my people. I've kind of separated myself because I needed to isolate insulate myself so that I could build this business. But once again, along the way, he lost sight of what was most important. The most important thing wasn't the business he built. It was the family he built. His family was so important, and he let all of this blind him, and he lost sight of it, but he's not going to lose sight anymore. He sees what's in front of him. He sees what's so important, so he is walking away. And Veronica is so proud of him for taking that stand. Obviously, Mateo already knew this, but I'm sure even he was shocked to see Joe go public with that himself. And Carmen's hearing this for the first time, and I think Junior is too, but they're literally the only ones in the family who didn't know the truth. So the fallout present day and in the past was actually kind of heartbreaking in some regards, especially when you kind of cut present day in with the past stuff where Joe was suicidal. He had to get up. I was like, whoa. I was like, does no one know that he was planning on killing himself? And I got scared because I was like, wait, are you going to kill yourself present day? I was like, no. Like, you have too much fighting you to like, but I'm like, I know things are kind of sideways, but you didn't make it sound like you were suicidal. I was scared because I was like, no one knew where he was at the beginning of the episode because that was like 48 hours earlier. But I was like, wait, does that mean like, I mean, that was, and then everything else is like in that 48-hour window earlier. But I was like, did he go off someone to hurt? I was like, please don't tell me you hurt yourself, Joe. But it's like, doesn't seem like that's the case. But he ends up giving everything to Veronica. She's like, I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't want to win this way. He's like, no. You throw a pretty hefty punch, Veronica. But he goes, but your first punch is always with love. And he's like, that's what's going to make you a different leader. That's what makes it so that you will run this business better than I ever could. And she's almost looking like, right? Because he's like, yeah, I'm turning the reins over to you. This has always been yours. I think it's time. Realizing how lost he got in all of this made him realize, like, right, I do have to take a step back because I am not the man who started this all out. I need to kind of be more in touch with being Carlos again. Go back to being that man again, you know, before I got swept up in all of this. And so, you know, passes it on to V. He's talking to Margaret, who's like, we were married for 10 years. Why didn't you ever tell me? Did you think I couldn't handle it? And at the end of the day, he's like, would it have really changed anything if I had? And she's like, we'll never know. And I think that's the sad thing. If he had probably let her know, I think it would have changed a lot. Margaret probably would have like stuck by you all the way through, like, because there was always going to be that thing of like, there was always a part of himself he was always holding back from. Because she knew that, hey, I know you love Letty, but it's like, right, we had children together, we built a life together, and it's sad to know, like, when you look at the past with them, like, because especially with like a Veronica looking back at a young her with her mom and her dad, and it's just like, it's sad to know, like, at one point in time, there was love there. And I even love that, did you think, because I think what Margaret had said was like, oh, did you think of like, is it because I made you feel like you couldn't tell me? He was like, you made me feel like I was a king. So it's like, the question is, once again, it gets passed around this episode, what are you going to do now? And ultimately, Joe says he doesn't know. This is all he's ever known, but he's ready to kind of have a fresh new start, and he wants Margaret to buy him out. And she says, for 20 years, I've been waiting to hear you say that, but now that you have, because now it kind of cuts anything that's left between them, it cuts it off, and I think that's what she's kind of like, right, because that little back and forth has kind of been their thing for a while. It's gotten kind of nasty, but it's kind of been their thing, and now that that's gone, it kind of severs and cuts. They'll always be bound together by the fact is they are family, because it's like, right, you are the mother of my children, and he's the father of your children, so like there's always going to be a connection there. But I think for her, this was like the last thing that kind of truly bound them together. But now having it all, kind of having the business back, having the vineyard back, having, getting it all back, it fills her with joy, because this is kind of her family legacy, and to have it kind of fully back again, she's celebratory at the end. Kind of tying this in with like the stuff I was referencing about Joe trying to kill himself is because he talked to Letty, and Letty was like, well, he wanted to marry Letty, but Letty's like, I'm marrying Billy because I'm having a son. He's like, well, we'll raise the kid as my own, which is interesting considering you would ultimately end up being there for Mateo like he was your own to some extent, which is sad because you have, once again, that past, looking at the past, but knowing the present situation of Billy, like, oh my God, Letty, you're pregnant. Don't joke with me. Oh my God, little Mateo, I'm going to be there for the rest of you. I'm going to be there for you always, promise. And you're like, yikes. And then you have the whole situation of Joe being like, I'll raise him as my own. No one has to know. Billy doesn't even have to know. She's like, Billy does know. She's almost like, I can't believe you would say that. And even back then, she was already feeling like Carlos wasn't Carlos anymore. You're not the man that I fell for. He was like, no, Letty, please. I'm sorry I said it. It's me. It's me. And she's like, you'll forget about me. And he's like, no, it's me. I will never forget you. Like, once again, he fell in love with her the moment they first met. So understandable why he was kind of a little, sadly, suicidal. That was just like heartbreaking to see that, but he felt like his heart had been crushed, like everything he wanted, it kind of meant nothing without Letty. And we could see present day, the same thing was happening. That's made him kind of reevaluate everything. It's because, like, right, Letty has been so important to him. She's, been his first love and everything. First love is always the one that always hits a little harder, I think. But Margaret luckily found him before he could do anything, and he has a sit down with Honeycroft, and it's like, right, striking a deal of, I could never make a profit on something, so I was just looking for the right man for the job. And Carlos is like, right, I'm the right man. Well, Joe is like, I'm the right man for the job. So looking out what would eventually become his future. Because I love that there's that line with between Antonio and Javi where they talk about like how the winter is it looks, the winter vineyard, though it looks so barren, it's actually so hopeful and promising, because it's just like, right, the potential that exists for it, that's the beautiful element to it. So about what it can produce and what could be is the beautiful thing. So that's why like a winter's barren vineyard is actually beautiful in its own regard. And him and Antonio's like, oh, where'd you hear that from? It's like, oh, from your dad. It's like, Billy ultimately ends up leaving because he wants to give Letty time. It's like, and it's something Mateo had said to her. It's like, right, why do you need to, like, because she working on the vineyard, like working on the vines again during the harvest, it made her like feel like herself again, feel something she hasn't felt in a long time. And so she wanted to feel that again, and she wanted to kind of partner up with probably most likely like someone else, or even Billy to do it. But he's like, why do you need anyone else? And she's almost like, what? It's like, yeah, you've sacrificed and given so much to other people, Joe, Billy, even me. Like, you've taken care of other people for so long. It's time, your second wind, your second act, to kind of look after yourself, like do what you want. So she was in the process of figuring out what she wants, and Billy wants to give her the space to do it. He says, no matter where I am, I will always love you, but I want to give you the time to figure out what it is that you want. Like what we've had together in these like past 2 or 3 days now, it's been good. It feels nice to kind of go back to what things were, but it's like, right, things aren't the way they were. Things are different now, and you have to decide, like, figure out for yourself where you stand in all this. So Letty being proud of Joe because of his speech reaches out to him. It's like, right, you can work with me and my new business partner. And it turns out it's Mateo. And Mateo's like, right, I could give you like this amount to kind of plant whatever you want to and do what you want with it. Be your own winemaker. And Joe kind of laughs and takes him up on it. And so we see them all working together later on. And I think for Joe, it helped him kind of come back to who he was, kind of get away from Heritage House and able to kind of start things from the ground up. And we see Margaret, Antonio, and Veronica working together. Obviously, Junior helping Marta get Carmen's phone out of the pool. Like, either that was Carmen, like, yo, you're going to do that, or Marta was like, Junior, are you stupid? Get the phone. Like, I'm curious, like, who kind of convinced who of that, but there is this beautifulness with this finale where it's just like, everything is kind of resolved. It's kind of open and shut. I wonder, is this one of those things like they went back and filmed more to round out? Because this episode was longer than all the other episodes. That's why I'm like, did they add on stuff? Like, did they end it a little more? Things left open? Because, like, which isn't to say, like, oh, there's no more story to tell. There's still plenty of story to tell. What Carmen does after this, what things look like going forward for Joe, because he's like, right, I got lawyers and stuff. Because that was also the thing, too, that he was saying, like, right, there are other people in this country who are in the same situation I am. Fortunately, I have the money to defend myself, so you're most likely going to go after those people. And that's why he was also, because she, like, Veronica was like, right, you don't know how the shareholders are going to turn out. But he's like, right, the shareholders have never had any courage, so I know how it's going to turn out for me. But also, that was a sad line. I'm like, he has the money and power and position to defend himself. Not every person within the legal status does, So he's like, right, you're going to go after them, turn your attention more towards them because you can get them, but you can't get me. At least not that easily. But dealing with a lot of the aftermath of that is probably where we'd see Joe's story. Obviously, things between him letting Billy, like, continuation of figuring out where they stand on that. What the full scale of what the business looks like with Margaret working with her two oldest, which, it gives her an opportunity to repair her relationship with Veronica. Gives her an opportunity as a whole to, like, because she was all on the road to repairing things with Carmen. Interestingly enough, her and Carmen didn't have really too much more interaction over the course of the season, like less and less as the season went on, even though because Margaret was making her big move to try and get her shares and such, so. But like I said, it's like, it is resolved enough that you like, it could be a finale, a satisfying enough finale, and you just have to fill in the blanks of like, right, where the story would go from there. But enough is resolved that it's like, oh, it's kind of, the story they've set up for this season has been resolved. But obviously there's still so much history of like, right, we're fast forwarding, jumping around a little bit with like the past of like, now Billy and Letty are married, Margaret and Joe, which is also interesting because they were only married for 10 years. So, because then you start thinking like, right, so how long was Letty and, well, because like Carmen was like, wasn't she like 3 when her mom left? So, because Letty and Joe have been together for like 20 years. So, I guess, because I was wondering like soon, like how long after like where we left off with Margaret and Joe in the past, did they eventually get married? Then it's kind of interesting to know, like, right, they were only married 10 years. That means maybe Billy and Letty were married maybe a little more than 10 years. Like, there's still so much story to tell there, where seeing Joe's rise to where he was. I wonder would they even bother with that, like, because we've set up the background. It's like, right, that's all been set, so... And if there was a season 2, would they use that model as much anymore, flashing back to the past? I feel like there is, 30-ish years, 30-plus years of history there that hasn't really been tapped on yet. All that they went through to get to where they are, but maybe that's also the thing of like, right, the journey to where they are now, you can, once again, maybe just like potential season 2, maybe you could just fill in the blanks yourself, so it might not be those 30 plus years, you might not get many answers. It might just be like, right, you just know where they ended up at the end result, like showing you their beginnings and the beginning stages of how they got to where they are, like it all coming full circle, ending with Joe getting his first opportunity that would eventually lead to him building what he built with Heritage House, to at the end with him giving up Heritage House. Maybe that's all you'd get there, and if there was a season 2, it just stick with present day and just the aftermath and fallout of all of this. But it ends on a positive enough note that, like I said, it feels like it could be a finale of sorts, because looking into it, it's unclear. I don't think anything at the time of me recording this, I couldn't find anything immediately that says it has officially been canceled, but it seems like it's leaning that way because the show did not do great ratings wise. I think critically a lot of people liked it, but not enough people watched it. That's why it went from ABC to being on Hulu because of that, and being on Hulu didn't really help it as much either. So at least the rest of the season was able to play out. Like, ABC has pulled shows and didn't air the rest of the season. Like, the show Time After Time was like that. Like, I only saw Time After Time, like, a year or two ago, all the other episodes, because they only ever aired, like, a fraction of the season. Probably very much like, this, and only aired, like, 5 episodes or something on ABC. Like, maybe you could immediately find it, because I think internationally more episodes aired. I can't remember. It was a whole thing. So I don't know. I would love to see a season 2 of the show, but it seems unlikely. But you never know. But it seems just like it just not enough people watch the show for it to be a thing, which is a bummer, because I think it is a really good and compelling story about about family, and about a story that I feel like you don't get to see highlighted and too often. I mean, I've never watched it because obviously, but it's in a more comedic sense. I'm sure a lot of these elements in this show exist in like Fresh Off the Boat as well, because I think that's what made that show a success too, because you've got to see a story that never usually gets highlighted either. From the Asian community, in this particular case, from the Latin community. So I think it's a story that I would like to see have more of an opportunity to tell even more stories. But like I said, in its own way, it is a great finale in its own. But I still would want more stories in this, following this family and just where things would go from here. And like I said, how they would end up structuring a potential season 2. So, if this is the end of the road, I would want to thank all the people involved, actors, creators, writers, everyone in front of the camera, behind the cameras, for making a very compelling story that just kind of had you kind of on the edge of your seat, just curious to see where things were going to go, how things were going to develop, and for things to have such a more so happy conclusion, So if this is the end, which I hope it's not, but it seems like it is, I do wish everyone the best in their future endeavors, all future projects that everyone is involved in. So, but really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.